music too.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to another Chit Chats. I am here with RJ Ronquillo. Hey, RJ.
Hey, Rick.
How you doing?
Good day, mate. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. I've been wanting to have you on the show pretty much since I met you in Germany at 42 Gear Street.
I know. I can't believe it was so long ago.
Time has gone quick, hasn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
This year, I bet this year's going to go by fast.
It already has, man. Already has. So, for those who don't know, RJ is one hell of a guitar player. I had not heard of RJ until I had to go to 42 Gear Street in Germany, and I actually sold my Friedman amp to fund the plane ticket because Australia's a hell of a long way. And the guy that bought it got talking to him, and it turned out his nephew was a pretty famous gaming YouTuber, and he sort of was going on about it, and he was a guitar player. Obviously, he bought my Friedman amp, and he was going on about this YouTuber that he's really into named RJ, and I sort of
No way.
yeah, it was really cool. So I had a look at my itinerary and went, funny you should mention that, man. The guy that I meet up with at the airport, I'm meeting up with RJ, and so he was a big fan straight up. And he was going on about your playing, and he just saying about if all the guys out there doing it, that you're straight to the point, your playing is on point, and that, you were his favorite YouTuber. So
I wonder if he's in the chat today. That'd be crazy if he was.
He may be. Who have we got in the chat? We've got some friends of yours by the looks of it. Matthew Delahunt.
Matthew, yes.
Steve Roberts. G'day from the Gold Coast. Another Gold Coaster. RJ,
Gabors.
you are one of the best cats on the YouTube from Steve Roberts. I agree with that.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, I was wondering if you have ever tried the new Magnatone M80 Super 59 heads. We'll have to get into some gear talk in a second. Just seeing who else is here. I am. Super fun, awesome, happy time pedal show. Gabor.
Is that?
That's Gabor.
Yeah.
I can't get past that name.
He's in the future too.
He is. He's not far from me, mate. He's only about an hour or two north drive from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we both gig in Brisbane, which is halfway in between. So we did cross paths once before Germany. But
oh, cool.
RJ, I wanted to ask you, man, what got you started in this crazy six-string journey?
Well, and I love telling the story because it's absolutely true and it's absolutely funny, but it was the movie Back to the Future.
Cool.
So my first guitar hero was Michael J. Fox, because I didn't know any. I mean, I knew, obviously, but it was kind of his performance in that movie and those scenes that kind of got me into like, oh, that's so cool, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of like it came at the appropriate time. I was maybe like 9 years old, and I got into skateboarding and I got into guitar playing because of that movie. So skateboarding eventually went along the wayside and I stuck with guitar, but that was kind of like the catalyst for me really getting into music and guitar players. So I got into Chuck Berry, and someone was asking me in the chat, like, who are my early heroes? And I said Chuck Berry, and then Clapton, then Santana, Hendrix, and then it was the 80s, so Van Halen and Satriani and Vai and everything. So that was kind of the order that I went into.
Cool.
So
that sounds very familiar. You must be of a similar age to me, because I can remember Back to the Future coming out just when I started to play guitar, and that scene of the big speaker and blowing away, and then trying to learn Chuck Berry licks at that age. And you nailed it when you said Van Halen, Satriani, Vai, that kind of thing. Sure. Yeah.
It was like the perfect time, the 80s, because a lot of the movies that were coming out and a lot of stuff that was on TV, I feel like I was bombarded way more then with music and guitarists on screen than now, obviously.
Totally.
So.
Totally. I mean, that was a golden era, wasn't it? I actually spent the last couple of nights, I've been a bit sick the last couple of days. I ate something I shouldn't have. So I've been sitting around moping about watching old 80s guitar instructional videos. And once you get past the hair on some of these people is absolute classic. But yeah, the whole shred thing was really in people's faces, but not so much just shred, just guitar playing in general. It's just not in people's faces anymore like it used to be.
Hmm.
Um,
Just in a different way. I mean, now we have YouTube and Instagram. So depending on, you get to choose if it's in your face or not now.
very true, very true. And I think the playing is probably better than ever. Would you agree? Like kids now have got access to that.
Oh, yeah.
And from a young age, man, I see some kids on there. There's a young Australian kid, Taj. Can't think of his last name. Have you seen him? He's a young kid with the dreadlocks and stuff.
Mm-mm.
Oh, man. Fantastic player. Like, he's not good for a kid. There's a lot of people that you see and you go, oh, he's great for a kid. No, close your eyes. This guy's just great. And then you look and you go, oh, and you're a kid? Yeah, yeah. So
That's even worse.
yeah, so I think it's really cool that YouTube has opened up the door and you can basically learn all that stuff. I'm going back and all those videos that I didn't have access to when I was trying to learn. It's all there now.
Yeah, I like all the Paul Gilbert intense rock videos, and
Yep.
because if you think about it, the VHS videos back then, even in the 80s, were like, at least in the States, I remember them being like $50 or $60,
Yeah.
which was expensive for a VHS cassette in the 80s. So I think I maybe got one, and it was dumb because it didn't come up with a booklet. But yeah, it's a lot cheaper now. It's free.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I saw somewhere along the way you mentioned that the John Petrucci video, or was it a book that you?
Well, I had the book. I didn't even know there was a video. So when I was in college, I was at the music store and I bought the book and just kind of went through some of the exercises in the beginning. I didn't even learn the stuff in the book or, the actual stuff. I just went through the exercises, and these were great exercises.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I did mention before that I wasn't aware of you before I went to Germany, and recently I saw the video of you jamming with Tim Pierce and a bit of a breakdown on a solo of yours, and
Yeah.
it's fantastic. But he mentioned on there that you guys both played on a Santana record together, and it just dawned to me that I don't know too much about your playing history and who you've played for. So do you care to share some of the stuff you've done over the years?
All right, get strapped in.
Okay.
Well, okay, so after high school, I went to college for music in Miami, Florida. So
cool.
I studied jazz at the University of Miami. After I graduated, I stuck around, and really all I did was kind of play gigs, cover band stuff, wedding bands, whatever gigs. And so I was making a living just playing locally and playing, 4 nights a week. And it was fine. And then eventually I met the right people, and I started getting called for session work, which is where the Santana thing, which I'll talk about in a second. But and then from there, just meeting more of the right people and getting asked to do little tours with like Latin artists in town. And so there was a point where I was doing like session work and touring, and it was great. And, just kind of catapulting into different tours. Eventually, I moved from Miami to Los Angeles to try something new. Did a little bit of touring there and did a little bit of gigging around town. It wasn't as spectacular as some other people's experiences in LA was. So eventually left LA, moved to Chicago actually for a second, but I was working in Nashville. So I was kind of commuting between Chicago and Nashville, and eventually settled in Nashville. Did the touring thing for about 5 years, and then just last year was my first year as a full-time YouTuber, which is very exciting. And that's where we are.
Cool. So you said full-time YouTuber. You're making a keep just from doing that then?
Yes, I did. I think I did one paid gig last year.
Okay. It's funny.
That was the only one I did, agreed to.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I've gotten a bit sick of doing the cover band gigs myself over the years. there's a big difference between playing shows where you're just an afterthought in front of a big screen, everyone's trying to watch the football, as opposed to people paying money to come and see you. I still do those kinds of gigs. There's a show that comes up when they come to my state. I play guitar for them, and it's a bunch of 80s rockers, Australian legends that I grew up listening to on the radio. So a couple of times a year they'll head up this way. Anything else, the cover band thing, no, bit sick of it. And I've been trying to get to being a full-time YouTuber myself. And man,
yeah, it's hard though, because I mean, it's kind of easy money depending on the gig, right? So it's like, it's hard to give up that security.
Totally. Now, I mean, you are immensely popular on YouTube. Was it a hard slog to get that way, or did it take off fairly quickly for you? Was there a certain video that broke it for you, that went viral, or how did all that work for you, mate?
Yeah, so with the whole YouTube thing, I kind of gradually fell into it by accident. The first work that I actually did on YouTube was for Eastwood Guitars. And the story with that was, I don't know if I have that guitar here, but there was a guitar, this guitar right here, which I had been eyeing on their website. And I wanted to get a discount. Like every other musician, you try to get it for cheaper. So I asked about getting an artist discount. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I wasn't really touring. So I said, hey, why don't I do a demo video on the guitar? And I'll give it to you guys, and you can post it, whatever. So that kind of broke me into the whole gear demo thing. So from there, they just kept on sending me guitars. And the good thing about Eastwood, and I know some of the people here in the chat have some Eastwood guitars, is they constantly put out new models of guitars. They only make like a short run of different models, mm-hmm. but they constantly put out some crazy models. So it was good for me because I was constantly getting work from that, which you can't really say that with all guitar companies. Sometimes guitar companies only release 1 or 2 models a year, sure. if that. Yep. So I got lucky with that, but eventually I got more traction on YouTube over the years. I mean, this was a period of maybe 3 or 4 years that I was just doing it part-time and not really paying attention to what YouTube was. In fact, all of the videos I did for them are on their channel. Okay. I didn't know that I should keep it on my channel and start getting ad revenue from it or whatever. So that's what it is now. That's fine. But eventually got my name out, and other companies would call me and email me and ask me to do demo stuff. So for a long time I was touring, and when I had time at home, I was doing demo work for pedal companies and guitar companies. And then, where was I going with this? What were we talking about?
How you got a bit of a kickstart on YouTube?
Sure. So basically all I was doing was gear demo stuff. And between the gear demos, I kind of experimented with putting out like guitar lesson videos. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, you can see some of my first ones that I'm like really awkward because I'm like I was really shy at talking on camera and everything. It's hilarious. But every new YouTuber kind of goes through that phase. So I did the lesson stuff, and then one year, I started getting more into YouTube and watching vloggers like Casey Neistat and all those guys. So I got really into his cinematography and his style. So I wanted to try to do a vlog, and I was still a touring musician. Then I'm like, why don't I just do a vlog on what it's like being not only a touring musician, but a Nashville touring musician, because that is a certain type of touring musician that's totally different than LA guys or what New York guys or whatever. So I did that video, and that kind of, I feel like it got more views than any other video that I had done. And that was kind of my aha moment. Like, okay, I can kind of do this. It's the audience is growing. I think I can get into it. But I continued for another year after that of touring. Might have been actually another 2 years after that of touring, before I said, hey, my YouTube stuff I'm getting more work as a YouTuber, and I have the potential of making just as much as if I were touring still. So, yeah, I just kind of pulled the plug on touring at the end of 2018, and it's been great so far.
Cool. Now, how long would you say you spend on each video? Like if you were to do a fully produced product demo on something, like just saying an amplifier, how long would that typically take you?
Well, okay, so the gear demo stuff is usually the quickest as far as like planning, shooting, and editing. Pedal demos for me are super easy because once I have everything set up, I can just kind of swap out pedals, and
cool.
and just go with it.
Yep.
Usually, I mean, the past 2 weeks, ever since NAMM, I've been like bogged down with so much work, which is great. But I try to do at least one video or two videos. So I'm probably like a lot of YouTubers that batch stuff. So like I'll take one day and film a bunch of content, film a bunch of demo videos, and then I'll take another day and edit it all
cool.
and stuff.
Okay.
But I kind of measured it, and I can probably do 2 full videos a day. That's from start to finish, you know, recording it and editing.
Wow, cool.
So I've tried 3, and I've done 3 in a day, but it's hard.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to admit, I don't watch much of your stuff because I'm intimidated by you. I'm intimidated by you and your playing and your how natural you are. I don't watch many other guitar YouTubers, which is really funny. You'd think I'd be watching them constantly. Most guys, it's because they just talk too much, and it's like, man, get to the bloody point. But
I fast a lot.
Yeah, you're one guy that I've come across, and it's just like, yep, great player, straight to the point. I can't watch this guy because I'll never do it myself. But I'm getting over that. I take a lot longer, but I kind of write a tune specifically. I'm going to get into just playing over backing tracks using Tom's elevated jam tracks.
That's what I do. I do that a lot. Like if I'm in a pinch.
Yeah.
I mean, I try, if I have time, I try to make my own backing tracks, and they're usually pretty simple, couple vamps.
Yep.
You know, they're not like super produced. But sometimes if I have a deadline and it's a piece of gear that I could just kind of jam to, I've bought like 2 or 3 of Tom's packs.
Cool.
Jam packs. He gave me one at 42 Gear Street, but then I bought a couple other ones. They're great.
Absolutely. And it was a real spin out to meet Tom. If anybody doesn't know who we're talking about, if you type in backing track into YouTube, 90% of what comes up is from a channel called Elevated Jam Tracks. And that is Tom. He's a lovely chap, English guy. He's rather shy. He doesn't like having his face on camera, but man, he's the man when it comes to backing tracks. And I'm going to start doing that for pedals and the like, just to try and get things out there a bit quicker. Mm-hmm. Because I take way too long. Now, RJ, I wanted to ask you about your approach to the fretboard, mate, because you're such a great guitar player. You mentioned that you're schooled, you went to university and studied, which I'm about to do, actually. I'm about to do a Bachelor of Contemporary Music starting next week.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Oh, thanks, mate. But I wanted to ask you about your approach to the fretboard, because everybody's very different with how they see the fretboard. What's your approach, mate? Do you have many different approaches, or is there a particular method that you like to use?
I mean, I do a couple different approaches. If you're talking about, let's say, soloing or improvising, maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I don't have any like secrets. It's kind of like what a lot of people do, where like, I know my modes, I know my triads and arpeggios and patterns. Okay. And I mean, that's kind of my basis. I kind of go from that. And I have a bunch of stock licks that I kind of my go-to licks, that I'll probably start out with that when I start a solo. And then kind of like as the solo goes along, I kind of, if I'm lucky, I get into a zone where I'm getting really creative and mixing up things that I've never tried before, or plus, the stuff that I already know that I know is safe.
Yep.
But I don't know, I haven't, it's weird because I haven't really analyzed my soloing style. Other people have, which is great.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people transcribe my solos, which is amazing to see.
Yeah.
But I never really sat down and analyzed like the actual transcription and be like, oh, so that's what I did here. But I like to use a lot of pentatonic stuff,
yep.
which doesn't, a lot of people think, oh, pentatonic means minor pentatonic blues scale, but really pentatonic is just a 5-note scale of anything. Mm-hmm. So I'll sometimes do a lot of 5-note scales because I like the spread of the intervals compared to like a regular mode,
sure.
With whole steps and half steps.
Yep.
Where with pentatonics you have whole steps and minor thirds and all that stuff and major thirds. So it's a more interesting. You kind of have more interesting shapes and patterns with pentatonics. I do a lot of like triads and arpeggios.
Okay. Yep.
One thing I don't do a lot of is a lot of linear scalar playing, up and down the scale type of stuff.
Sure.
Unless I'm doing something like a shreddy line, that 3 notes per string type of thing.
Yep.
But I like wider intervals,
yep.
I guess.
Cool.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I get you. And you're right. The whole 3 note per string thing does have a sound about it. It's very good and very fluid, but the wider intervals, it's a nicer sound. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, you think of like Eric Johnson and I mean, I could say Alan Holdsworth. I can't play like Alan Holdsworth, but that's kind of more interesting now and then.
Yep.
But I mean, my style of playing is very blues influenced and blues based.
Yep.
So even if I'm playing like a Latin fusion tune, I'll make sure I throw in some sort of B.B. King lick in there or something like a. So I like to mix my styles, and I think most people that have seen my videos can see that I like to mix things like blues, metal, Latin jazz, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just because that's kind of my taste in music is so all over the place, which is kind of a bad thing sometimes. So
not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm trying to like condense everything that I like in my playing, I
think that's what makes somebody unique, though, is to get all those different influences and put it together. Yeah. As much as I play guitar, I spent a long time not being a guitar player and being into electronic music production. And I worked in radio as a producer and stuff, and so the whole Pro Tools and electronic thing was my world for a long time. And somebody that really pricked my ear was Skrillex when he came out, because I'd never heard anything like it. And then when I read about his influences, it was like, oh yeah, his parents listened to Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails, but he also sang in punk bands, and just the mesh of it all just sounded like him, and it was like nothing else. Yeah. So bringing all those influences together, I don't see as a bad thing at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's, what the hard thing is, or the hardest part is trying to find the perfect mix of all the styles that I like, as opposed to, just playing, blues licks over a fusion track or something, or, it's trying to find my style, knowing that I have all these influences, and that's been the hardest part. And I think I kind of touched on that when I was speaking to Tim Pierce. Was right now is when I'm finally getting into my personality as a guitar player and finding my style.
Cool.
Which has been, like 30 some years in the making.
Yeah. So speaking of that little segment that Tim featured you on, when he analyzed your playing, did that bring to light things that you weren't aware of? I know one of the first things that I noticed he mentioned was that you were using themes or motifs, and that's something I stumbled on a few years ago in repeating things. It's like constructing a sentence and not just playing random stuff, but finding a nice little motif and then doing variations of it. Are you aware that you're doing things like that, or?
Yeah, a lot of times it's intentional, and it's funny. We were talking about the old '80s instructional
Yep.
videos, and one of my earliest memories was I got a compilation video for the Starlix
Yeah.
videos, and because it was like that wasn't $50, it was like $20, and there was a section with Larry Carlton, and he was talking about having like a theme
Yep.
and like going off of that theme and building licks upon that theme.
Yep.
And back then when I was a kid, I had no idea what the heck he was talking about.
Yep.
Like I heard it, but I'm like, how do you do that? Where does that come from?
Yep.
And now I think about it all the time. Like when I'm starting a solo, I'll think about that Larry Carlton snippet where he just kind of plays like 3 notes.
Yep.
And then plays those 3 notes and then adds like 2 notes and stuff. So I'll kind of do that a lot. But it's funny because I think about Larry Carlton when I'm doing that.
Man, me too. Because it was a Larry Carlton video that I saw about 3-4 years ago on TrueFire. And,
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I played a show not long after I'd seen this with a friend of mine I've been playing with on and off in bands with for 30 years. He's heard my bag of tricks. He knows how I play. And the first time I ever tried this whole motif thing with him, and I played a little bit and then did a variation of that, he pretty much stopped playing his bass, threw his hands in the air and just went, "Oh, fuck, how was that?" and I was like, wow, I could sit here and try and go, blah, blah, blah. And he'd just like, yeah, I've heard it a million times. But when I tried that, it floored him. He was like, oh, man. I'm like, oh, okay, this has some merit. And it's something I've tried to be aware of ever since. So when Tim Pierce brought that up about your playing, I just thought, hello, I wonder where we got that from. And we both got that from Larry Carlton.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like I say it's intentional, but now that I think about it, it's not intentional until I decide to go off of a certain lick that I'll play. So I'll play a lick, just spur the moment, and I'll quickly decide, oh, that's a cool lick. Let me kind of riff on that a little bit and see what comes up.
Yeah. In case people aren't aware of what we're talking about, what Larry said to do was basically before you take your solo, listen around to the band because somebody's going to be playing something really cool. Just say somebody, the keyboard player goes, "Ba-na-na-na." You go, thank you. I'm going to take that and I'm going to go, "Ba-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na." Sort of make something around that. And wow, what a great way to open up the doors of inspiration, essentially. Yeah. Cool. Okay. I'm coming from the same place as RJ. Yes.
Yes.
RJ, just going to have a look through the comments and see what we've got here in case anybody wants to say hello. Okay, so Steve asked before, I was wondering if you have ever tried the new Magnetome M80 Super 59 heads. If so, what do you think? I personally haven't. Do you know this head, RJ?
I know about the M80 Super 59 amps, but I haven't had a chance to play any of the new Magnetone stuff.
Yeah, you're lucky over there. Being in Australia, we don't get much cool gear. The nearest shop that actually has all the high-end amps is about 1,000 miles away from where I am. That's how big this place is.
Now, are there builders and companies in Australia that we don't get, that we don't know about?
Yeah. So the first one that popped in my head was MI Audio, is the name of an amp company over here, Michael Ibrahim. There's a couple of really good guitar builders, Charles Cillier, ET Guitars, Ernie Taylor. There's two that straight away, fantastic guitars.
Yeah. Wow.
So I guess there's a bit of that, isn't there, that we'd probably have things
over
like
here. I'm sure I've never heard of the Australian companies, and so it works both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what else we got in the chat here? That guitar behind RJ looks awesome. Oh, wow, I just had a look myself. They're probably talking about, let me just cut to you there. It's like a Beatle bass looking thing.
This one. Hold on. Who's asking this? Was Gabor asking about this?
Yes, it was Gabor.
Gabor. Okay, so this is a company called Hallmark, and they basically make copies of Mosrite guitars.
Yep.
So like the old Semi Mosley guitars from Bakersfield, California. So I have this one, which this is the first one. This is actually it's called a Stradette.
Cool.
Which is the designer was a guy named Bill Gruggett, and my understanding is he worked for Mosrite, and then he left and started his own company, I guess, or something. But this was one of the crazy designs he came up with, and it's got like this Mosrite style vibrato, which I've played, vintage Mosrites, and it's pretty close,
Cool.
Very close. So yeah, this is one of the most unique guitars that I have.
Yeah, right. So what's your number one guitar? What do you tend to lean on if you're going to go out and play and you can only take one guitar? What gets you by?
I've come to terms that I'm a Strat guy.
Yes, me too.
Which I started on a Strat. My first guitar is somewhere. I think it's over there. But I still have my first guitar, which is a Japanese Strat. And I just got a new Strat, which is, I don't know if you saw pictures, but it was a left-handed Strat that I turned upside down because it's my Hendrix Strat.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just love the way they sound and the way they're not easy guitars to play, some of them,
Yeah.
So they make me work. Which is, I was thinking about this the other day, is like, Strats are great. And then once I moved away from Strats for a little bit and went to the Les Paul side.
Ooh.
And, going from a Strat to a Les Paul, it's like, oh man, this is great. The radius is flatter and the scale length is shorter and the humbuckers are louder. This is great. And then eventually I went back to liking Strats because they were harder to play.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But they weren't as refined, or they didn't have a flat fingerboard. The scale length was longer. The trem systems can be wonky and everything.
Yep.
But there's just something about them that I've always dug.
Well, you said your first guitar was a Strat, and I think it's one of those things. Whatever your first guitar was really makes a big impact. Now, for me, I'm a skinny guy, and as a teenager, anytime I tried to play a Gibson style guitar, man, that just hurt. It just hurt me because there was no cutaway at the back and it would dig into my ribs,
Yeah, you're right.
my arm on the top. Whereas a Strat, you got those lovely contours and it just fit in. The jack being on top as well, you could sit around and play on the lounge and not be knocking your jack out. So just little ergonomic things like that. And then now, just talking to you earlier, it sounds like we learnt to play guitar around the same time. Everybody played Strats and Super Strats.
Mm-hmm. In the 80s.
Yeah, right up until Guns N' Roses came out, man. Gibson was just like, one of those old 70s kind of things.
Yeah. I feel like Fenders at the time were also more affordable, or at least they had a range of instruments, a line that was, affordable for beginners,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like when I was a kid, Gibsons were just kind of out of my price range, so I didn't even bother with them.
Yep. There's always been a bit of a snubbery, I think, about Gibson. I think they charge way too much for.
Yeah, I mean that's always been the case,
Yeah. Now, how about amps? Have you got like a desert island amp that you go for, or you just take whatever's there and work with it?
I kind of, yeah. I mean, there hasn't ever been one amp that was like, oh my god, I love this amp. I mean, I guess I haven't really fallen in love with any amps that I've had.
Yeah.
If there was one that I used a lot that I still use, it's like a Blackface Bassman head.
Oh, cool.
From a 66, I think it is. Yeah. And I tend to go for amps with less knobs. So, like in my videos, I have a Sir PT100, which is, a mega 3-channel amp that has a decent amount of knobs. It's not like a Mesa Boogie or anything, but that's as much as I'll go as far as the amount of knobs. Some of my favorite amps is just a volume and a tone, like the old Gibsons or the like the Fender Champs and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I'm kind of the same way with pedals. Like I almost love pedals that are preset to a sound.
Yeah.
Like either one knob or no knob at all. You just click it on and like that's what you get.
Yeah. Man, I was lucky enough to have a 52 Telecaster, genuine one, and a 52 Fender Deluxe amp here last year sometime. And I had studio legend Louis Shelton come around. His first guitar was a 52 Tele, and I had him come over and we did a bit of an interview. People will find that on my channel if they want to check that out. But when Louis plugged the 52 Tele into this amp, which did not have many controls on it, oh man, that sound. And we didn't have it mic'd up. It was just the lapel mics that we had and bleed. It wasn't until later that I sort of went, oh shit, we haven't mic'd up the amp. We didn't need to. It just sounded, oh man. And there has been a few times over the years where friends have come to me and they've bought all these fancy processors or amps that have got way too many knobs, and they don't know in their head what a good guitar sound is, and it really messes them up. And I often think to myself, man, you need an amp with just a volume and a gain and nothing else. And it's not a bad thing. Just go straight to the sound and play, you know?
Yeah. It's funny regarding gear. Like I didn't know what a tube screamer was until college.
Okay.
And it's funny because like my friends were buying tube screamers, but they were putting them through their solid state amps, and it just sounded awful.
Yeah.
And like, that pedal sucks.
Yeah.
And then I bought one a couple years later and figured out that it sounds best through a tube amp with a little bit of, gain on the amp itself, or a little push to the amp, just to, and it tightens it up or whatever. So I think part of learning how to play guitar, and before you start going out and buying gear, is learning how the gear works. Yeah. Which is a whole nother thing. And for me, that didn't really come into play until after college. Okay. I didn't have a pedal board in college. I didn't really have a lot of pedals. I didn't have any tonal knowledge. Yep. I just bought amps that worked, that, were loud enough and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know anything about tone until I started getting more into pedals. And, then the internet came about and we had the gear page and all this stuff. And so I think that's a big part of learning how to play guitar, is learning how the gear works.
Absolutely. And I think your ear gets more refined the more you play. You mentioned before we started, you spied the ADA MP1 I have back there. And that was my main rig, man. And I used one of those through the 90s, and people used to comment on my tone back then. And I scored that one maybe about a year ago, and tried to set it up and think, I'm going to use one of these again. And when I hooked it up, I kind of realized, I'm hearing things in that I'm really not liking anymore. It just had a bit of a scratchy tone, which I don't recall back then. There might be something wrong with that one. I'll investigate a little further. But one thing I have learnt with that is chucking a boost pedal in front of it does wonders. Brings that clarity that I'm missing. Just a clean boost, just giving it a little bit in the front end and then backing the gain off in the actual preamp. But back then in the 90s, I didn't know that. I just went for it and I thought, that's great. I haven't played too many amps. One thing that pops into mind, I do remember borrowing an old Marshall JMP head, which, is pretty sought after these days, taking it to rehearsal, and the guys in my band telling me, that's a bit of a novelty, but can you use your old rig, your other rig with the ADA? We think that sounds much better. And in hindsight, like JMP is pretty hard to beat. You wind that sucker up.
Yeah.
But I guess tastes change in time.
Changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right. It's, especially for guitarists,
Yeah, different things.
When everyone started using heavy strings when they heard Stevie Ray was using heavy strings. When Eric Johnson came out, everyone was turning down their tone on their amps and going for more darker, warmer sound and everything. So it's going to change again.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of gear in the studio, this is your studio that we're seeing in the background?
Yes, this is my control room section.
Okay, I don't see much of it. Down in the very corner, I can see it looks like you've got a bit of a rack or something that I can just see a corner of down there. Yeah. No, what was that you just boxed?
These are all guitars.
No, okay. I'm just trying to make out what that is down the bottom there. No, it was a pedal on a stand or something that you just touched.
This one?
No, it was the other side.
Oh, here.
Yeah. That's...
Oh, look at this. This is my signature pedal that I just released.
Check it out. Tell us about your signature pedal.
So this is my Sus Mariosip pedal that my friend that runs Mythos Pedals here in Nashville, Zach, him and I kind of worked on this last year and designed it, and we released it at the NAMM show this year. And what it is, and I never get tired of telling the story. So Sus Mariosip is a Filipino slang word, which is a contraction of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So it's a phrase that, you know, our parents would yell at us when we were doing something stupid or whatever.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought of the phrase first, and then I thought of what I wanted the pedal to be. So since it's 3 words in one, I wanted 3 effects in one.
Cool.
So it's a boost, a clean boost in front of an overdrive, which is a Herculean V2, which is my favorite Mythos overdrive that he makes. It's kind of like it's not super transparent, but it has a lot of clarity that I like, and it can go from low to medium gain. And then at the end, I have an echo unit, which I use as a slap delay. But as you can see, there's only one slider, which is just for the mix. But we put trim pots on the side. So if you want to adjust it to have more repeats or more time, you can. And it's kind of like a set it and forget it type of delay.
Nice.
So it's not like for shoegaze or like ambient people that need to twiddle knobs.
Yeah.
It's more for like set it how you want it and then click it on when you need it.
Nice. And are these available now?
We're taking pre-orders. We started taking pre-orders right after NAMM, and I believe we're still aiming for a March release. You know, the parts are slowly coming in from overseas. So, but I believe they're in all the boxes. All the components are coming in. So March, I think, is when we start shipping, and I think we have a couple of pre-orders in.
Nice. Okay.
So,
yeah. And where do people get those?
I believe it's mythospedals.com.
Cool. I'm going to have to check out one of those myself. And
I'll send you one.
Nice. Thank you, mate. Best pedal name ever. Lauren Watson Ariel has just said best pedal name ever. I'll just go back through some more of these comments just in case we missed something here, mate. Just jump back a little. Now, Guitar Behind RJ, we talked about that. Crossroads. I think that's in reference to us talking about the 80s and just influential
movies,
stuff that was out there. Arlen Roth, a lot of hair. Taj Farrant, that's the young Australian kid.
Okay, I've heard that name. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Check him out, man. Very mature player. Gabor's saying the only guitar VHS tape I ever bought was a Joe Diorio Learn How to Play Jazz video. It didn't work. I cannot play jazz. I was really down on that for many years, but I've come to realize, man, that I'm a rock and roll guitar player, and there's guys out there that have that jazz knowledge and everything, and they cannot play AC/DC the way I can. So
yeah, it works both ways. But also, I feel like the jazz VHS cassette tapes back then, I didn't learn anything off of those cassette tapes either. I think maybe they were just not good teachers.
Okay.
Through VHS tape. Yeah. Like I had a Joe Pass video that I didn't learn anything from that video.
Right. You did mention
it was great to see him play.
You mentioned like a compilation video of those which were cheaper. And I had one of those, and it had Tuck Andrus from Tuck and Paddy. And I did learn lick number 1 off that, where he was doing a walking bass line and sort of doing some chord comping. It's about the only thing that I could play that's remotely in that style.
Yeah.
The budget compilation tape came to the rescue for me on that one. Is that an Eastwood on the wall behind you, RJ? The one that shaped? Yeah, we've already looked at that. Hey guys, either of you guys use a pedal switcher on your board? I don't, but I intend to. and not on my board. I want to get back into having a MIDI switching system and having my pedals back there. I've got a MIDI switcher lying around here somewhere that I actually bought off 9 Inch Nails, and 9 Inch Nails are one of my favorite bands ever. If you check out any of their live videos that are filmed from on stage, it's in front of the bass player at the time. Trying to think of his name. He played for Beck as well. Mental blank. It's right over there. I'll just grab it.
Yeah. I don't use a switcher on my board. But I have switchers.
I personally don't like having effects on the floor in smaller gigs where people are going to be spilling gear all over it. So I bought this from 9 Inch Nails. It's still got their markings and everything on it, all their label tapes and everything. You can see it clearly on their videos.
That's
and
awesome.
I prefer to have things, and I want to get a small rack and have a switcher back behind me. So to answer your question, no, I don't use one, but I intend to very shortly. What's your take on that, RJ?
So I have a bunch of switching things, but I just built my big mega pedal board with Vertex, and we didn't put a switcher on it just because since I'm not touring and I'm only in the studio, I don't really need to have MIDI switching capabilities or have presets because I'm just kind of like, as he says, I do it all a la carte.
Yeah.
But I do have everything. Like when I was on tour, I had a Voodoo Labs, what is it, GCX switcher. Yep. So I have a rack, which is crazy, which I use as a piece of furniture. It just kind of like I put all my crap on it. It's funny. But I do have one of those Boss ES5 switchers, which is what I use in the studio. Cool. So I kind of got this from Tim Pierce. So I have multiple pedal boards in my studio, and I switch the pedal boards through my switcher. So I can bypass one whole pedal board and just use another pedal board, or vice versa. So it keeps a cleaner signal as opposed to having one huge pedal board.
Yeah.
Like I kind of have it broken up into 3 sections.
Cool. And now you said ES5M. Is that the one that's got the multi-effects built in, right?
No, there's no multi-effects.
Oh, okay.
It's you can route up to 5 loops, but then you can have patches and do MIDI switching and a bunch of stuff that I probably don't need to use ever, but
okay, yeah.
But I have it,
and
that's what I use.
It's a very, very unique approach there, mate. I'll have to give that a try. Now, what else we got in the chat room here? Pedal switcher. RJ and Rick, greetings from North Los Angeles. Hey, Jose.
Yay, Jose. I've seen him in my chat.
Now, RJ, whose videos do you like to watch?
Gosh, I mean, if I go to my YouTube subscription page, you were saying like you don't watch a lot of guitar YouTubers. Yep. I probably shouldn't watch a lot of guitar YouTubers because I've subscribed to so many. You know, our friends, all of our friends from 42 Gear Street. Yep. I mean, I kind of subscribe to all the major, at least the ones that I know, the major guitar YouTubers. So Paul Davids, who else? You know, the big guys, Rhett Shull, Rick Beato. Yep. But the non-guitar related YouTube stuff I watch, Casey Neistat.
Yep.
Pete McKinnon.
Yep, he's great.
Yeah, and his and Matty, his buddy.
Okay, I haven't seen him.
And then there's a show called Hot Ones, which is it's a channel called First We Feast, but the show Hot Ones is basically a celebrity interview show.
Oh, cool.
But the premise of it is they have 10 hot wings, and they each go up in level from like mild to like extreme spicy, and they have to eat a wing, and then they answer the question, and it gets great, you know, after the 6th wing, cool. Because like people won't be able to answer the question; they'll be like, so it gets really funny, and I just saw that they posted Will Ferrell,
nice.
Which I'm going to watch probably tonight, but that's like one of my favorite YouTube shows.
Cool. Now, I'm just checking out some of the videos there again, mate. And so not videos, the comments. And Mark Holt says, need another Jay Leonard RJ collab, please.
Oh, yeah. I saw him at the NAMM show.
Yeah.
But we didn't have time to make a collab, so
okay, yeah,
maybe the next event.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guitar player too, man. He's just got especially his rhythm chops.
Guy.
I noticed when he's sitting around, and this is something I notice in a lot of players. 90% of the gig is playing rhythm guitar, and one thing that struck my ears about Jay was sitting around and his rhythm chops. It was just like, oh, okay, this guy can sit that groove like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I feel like he can play the drums.
Yeah, can you play the drums?
Yes.
Yep.
I played the drums before I started playing guitar.
Okay. And I think that really comes through in people's playing. If you can lock in and play the drums well, that goes a long way.
It helps.
Gabor's saying Vase amps. Now that you've probably never heard of Vase, they are an Australian brand from Brisbane.
Never even heard of.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I bumped into one of their reps and in an Outback airport a year or two ago, and he expressed interest in me doing some stuff for them. I should get back in touch.
I have an Australian piece of gear.
What have you got?
Oh, what is this? Oh, I never play it.
Maton, of course. Yeah.
It's a great guitar.
Yep. You see those everywhere over here, mate. It's the go-to.
Is that the Taylor of
Australia? Yeah.
Of Australia?
Yeah. It's funny, my experience, I don't own an acoustic guitar. And I say that because a really good acoustic guitar is really expensive. And I have several friends that have, and I'm talking Australian money, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 Taylors, Gibsons, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And if I need one of those, I'll just holler and grab one of those for the afternoon. Because I don't have that kind of money to be thrown around on a guitar that I'll barely use. But a few years back, I was doing some TV stuff for an Australian artist that was signed with Sony, and we got to pick and choose what we used for a lot of TV appearances. And my experience back then was that I really liked the sound of Maton guitars acoustically, and I'm going back 20 years ago now. I didn't like the pickup systems in them back then. I did prefer the sound of Takamine was the other one that we were getting a lot of. Mm-hmm. I preferred that plugged in, but they sounded terrible acoustically. Not terrible, but when you put them side by side. Since then, Taylor seems to be the high-end one that my friend's got this beautiful Koa Taylor. And man, that just has this whole octave of frequencies down low that other guitars do not have. It's just this insane bottom end. And the pickup systems I like in those. But it's really nice to see you with an Australian Maton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah. There is actually a guy on the Gold Coast here who I was going to get to do a live chat, but I've changed my tune. I'm going to go to his factory. He makes great acoustic guitars, Fennec guitars, fairly new brand, but really, really good acoustics. So I'm going to go and pay him a visit over the next couple of weeks and do a little bit of filming there. But yeah, that's another cool Australian brand. Gabor also said the Brian May signature Vox AC30 with only a volume knob and nothing else. Yeah, that's because Brian just turns everything all the way up. RJ, are there any band acts that could tempt you back out on the road?
That's a great question, Steve. I think if for me, like I tell everyone, if the right call comes in, then I would totally go back on the road. So I'm not like totally retired from the road. Any particular acts? Like I say, like, man, if Clapton called me and wanted me to replace Doyle, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what my dream gig right now would be. It's. I mean, there's a lot of artists that I would love to play with. Everything from like John Mayer, Bruno Mars, and older acts as well.
Yeah.
I love Guns N' Roses. I love who else? I don't know. I haven't thought about what would be a realistic option now.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I have to. I mean, it's not just about the money. It has to be like musically satisfying to me. You know.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, you never know, huh? Like what might get offered. I was actually talking to a friend of mine over here. He plays for an artist named Tony Childs. Do you remember her? I'm not sure if she had a hit in the States back around 1990.
As the name sounds.
Yeah, she lives out this way now. I think she's an American artist. But my friend plays guitar for her. And he said he sent a couple of emails out, reaching out to some bigger acts. One was an Australian act and another was, I'm not going to jinx him and say who it was, but it was a big group from the 70s, 80s. And they've all gotten back to him and said, hey, yeah, man, we've checked you out. You know, if something happens with our player, we'll give you a call. So I think you got to reach out to some of these people and just let them know that you'll be interested, because you never know who will say yes. And
yeah, that's interesting. I've never done that. I'm always too shy. I just wait. I wait for the calls to come.
Yeah. Shyness is a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah.
Like you said when you first started doing the YouTube thing, that it was very hard for you to talk to a camera. Man, I look at my first few videos and I'm just sitting there and I'm just not going to move because the camera that I had at the time didn't have autofocus, and I'm not going to move. And it takes a while. Gabor was totally onto the fact that was your signature pedal, that we were trying to work out what the thing was beside you.
Yes.
He also says he's happy to realize he's a hack guitarist, but a happy hack.
Oh, he's not a hack.
He also knew it was Justin Meldal Johnston that I was talking about.
That's
that
right.
was standing on this pedal board beside me.
I didn't know he played with Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, he did. Big fella Link, who is my friend that I said has the really nice Taylor acoustic, says Hot Ones is his latest addiction, so he's onto that one.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, a few people there saying Hot Ones is funny. Tone Talk, that'd be Mark. Nice shirt, Rick. Hey, Mark, I want you on here as a guest soon, mate. So if you're up for it, if you're free next week, that'd be cool. Taylor of Australia. Yeah. Bruno would be perfect. Yeah, he's Filipino, isn't he? Bruno Mars?
I think he's part, it's like Hawaiian, so most Hawaiians have a little bit of Filipino in them.
Okay. RJ would rock it with Beth Hart.
She's a great singer, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tony Childs is South African. There you go. That's why she's probably not a name over in the US.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Man, as I said, I don't play that much, especially cover band stuff anymore. But when I do get the call to play with the Absolutely 80s show, it's called, and that's the singers from all these 80s bands, I'm in heaven. I totally am.
It's great.
Yeah. I'll quite often look beside me. I'll be playing some cool song from the 80s. I look beside me and I think, that's the motherfucker that actually sang it, and I'm playing, that's total buzz.
Are these 80s bands from Australia?
They are. It's a revolving lineup. There's one guy who runs the show from a group called Kids in the Kitchen, which had several hits back in the early 80s. And it's a bit of a revolving lineup as to singers. And it's a great gig to have, man. Totally great.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
sounds like fun.
RJ, I wanted to ask you just about the gear that you use for your YouTubing.
Sure.
I asked you about what you had in the studio there. What are you using to record to? Is it the same rig that you actually do your video editing on as well? Give us a rundown, mate.
So when I do all my demo videos, I record all my video and audio separately. So my audio goes, I record into Logic, but all of my amps are running through a 2-notes Torpedo, which I've had forever. And that goes into my UAD Apollo interface, audio interface. And I just go into Logic. And in Logic, that's where I make my backing tracks. So I have like, Easy Drummer is my drum program. And sometimes I'll program bass. Yeah, it's easy.
Man, the selling thing for me was the only when I first started getting into making YouTube videos, Ola England was a big benchmark for me. And I saw him post a video about how he did his drums, 5-minute drums, because I was listening to his stuff going, does this guy take like weeks just to program the drums? Listen to that. And then when I saw this video of how I make my drums in 5 minutes using Easy Drummer, it was quite literally one of those, take my money.
Drag and paste.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
perfect.
I'm with you on Easy Drummer. I use other sound sources afterwards, but just to actually program, amazing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I basically do all my audio that way, and then my video, I just record on my Sony cameras, drag it into Final Cut Pro, and put it all together.
Cool. So, do you tweak your audio first before you sync it to your video?
Yeah, I do all my audio mixing and everything in Logic first, and then I bring everything into Final Cut.
Okay, cool. And are you recording separate microphones? Now, you said you're using 2 Notes Torpedo, yeah?
Yeah.
So you're not miking amps anymore?
I'm not miking any amps. I don't really have a space where I can turn them up here and crank them.
Yep.
So if I'm doing an amp demo, like if it's a combo amp, then yeah, I have to kind of mic it to get it real. Yep. But the only mic I use is my voice mic, which is an overhead, it's like an Audio Technica shotgun microphone.
Yep. So you place that overhead?
Yeah, it's just easier. I bought a couple lav mics, but they would always get tangled up, or sometimes they weren't positioned and they wouldn't sound good. Yeah. With the when it's a boom mic overhead, it's always consistent, unless I turn my head, but I try not to do that. But it works great, and I don't have to worry about it.
I did a little shootout myself a couple of weeks ago, mostly for my own sake, because I wanted to see what sounded best and what was easiest workflow. Because as you understand, making your workflow easier is everything to capture inspiration. So I tried some lapel mics. I tried mics on top of the camera. I tried an overhead, all hooked up at once, and just compared the same phrase, repeated. And yeah, the overhead and this thing both sounded really good. This is just a SM7.
Oh yeah.
But you don't always want a big chunky microphone in view. So yeah, I'm going to start using the overhead a lot more.
Yeah, it's funny because like you can get it really close, and it's still going to be out of frame.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw Colin Scott Guitars channel do a similar thing, and his overhead sounded great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now the whole 2 Notes thing, I had been miking things up, and I was using 2 Notes Torpedo Wall of Sound plugin, and I've got a Fryette power station back there. I'm not sure if right there.
Yeah.
Which I was using as a load box, but it has a strange issue where it bleeds the direct signal into my monitors. No matter what I've plugged into, I don't know if it's a really strong output, but I do have a 2 Notes Captor X coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to using that, and
that should be all you need.
Yeah, and just to be able to crank the amps a bit and get them breathing. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you, I've been recording direct for so many years now that I do miss the sound of a cabinet vibrating. Yeah. So I might, try to start miking amps, because in my studio, I have like a Marshall 412. I have a bunch of combo amps. Yeah. And there's something about just having that much vibration of the cabinet and the speaker together that you can't. I mean, I guess you can kind of approximate it with the IRs and everything, but
it's really
when it's in the same room. Yeah, when it's in the same room as you, that's something.
It is. It is. It's really close though. Using that as opposed to modeling and the likes. I've found just my take on modeling, and I've had them all. Yeah, they sound great just playing it there in the room if it's going through a cabinet or through your monitors, but it just doesn't sit in a mix the same way as a mic'd up speaker. My first experience with Acoustics when I first got one of those years ago was I could get it sounding great, but if I turned it up to where you could hear what I was playing in the track, it would mask everything else. But if I turned it back to where it should sit in the mix, I just couldn't define what I was playing. And I've found that with most of the modelers I've tried, mic up a speaker cab and bang, it just sits in the mix. I've got a little Vox AC10 just over my shoulder there. Man, that thing sits in a mix like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
But speaker IRs, absolutely the closest thing I've come to it. And hard pressed trying to tell a difference there. So that's something.
Yeah, I think, once you mic an amp and then process it through whatever preamp, compressor, and EQ, it's pretty much close to any kind of IR situation nowadays.
Now, when you are miking, do you have a preference for mics?
I mean, I for the longest time I would just throw in a SM57, but the Lewitt mic is now my mic of choice. It's a little bit.
You too.
It's a wider frequency range than a 57, so it's just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Oh, my sister's in the chat.
Yeah, I just saw that. I was going to jump to that. She's asking if you've ever been to Australia.
I have.
You have?
Briefly.
Yeah.
So I when I started with my country gig here in Nashville, Thompson Square, we went over to play a country festival right outside of Sydney.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I was so jet lagged. I think we got in the day before the show, and I was like, I don't even know what day or what time it is. So it was all a blur.
That sounds like when I met you at the airport in Germany, man. I was so jet lagged at that point from the travel time.
Yeah.
I was just like, hey.
What's going on? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. What struck me though, man, and I said to you this before we came on air, was how enthused you were. Some of the other guys that were at 42 Gear Street, they'd been to a few of these events and they're just like, whatever. But you were one of the guys that were like, here I am. I remember you had your little gimbal and just everything. You were excited and like, oh, check the much like I was. And it was really, really good to see. Now,
it's very exciting.
I asked you about the microphones just before because I too got one of the Lewitt 440s, isn't it? MTP 440.
MCT.
Yeah,
MTP.
And man, that is a great microphone. I too was always a 57 guy. And what I'm finding with that Lewitt microphone, especially with the little Vox AC10 back there, is it's got that wide. It captures the detail of the mid-range without being harsh.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's got a nice, sweet mid-range, extended low end. That combined with a ribbon microphone is. I've been messing with doing a little demo on that AC10 while I'm waiting to get myself another amp, and I've got that sounding really good. No EQ added afterwards. That's something I wanted to ask you. When you're doing product demos, do you EQ the amp afterwards, or do you do it as it's heard, trying to be true?
Oh,
like after you've recorded it, do you EQ it in Logic, or do you?
I do it. So if I'm playing to a backing track, I'll do a little bit of mixing just to make it pop through in the mix.
Yep.
But then when I'm playing it just solo guitar, which is kind of like my formula has always been for demos, is like first play with a backing track and then play without it and kind of do it a cappella.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not like an engineer by any means, but I've learned some stuff from my engineer friends, and they say to boost certain frequencies to get it to pop through the mix. So I might do that.
Yep.
But then when I'm just playing solo guitar, I'll back those down so they're not so bright, because they don't really need to be, because it's just guitar. So I'll do minimal EQing, but that's about it.
Cool. So there is a bit of a debate about that, whether you should be absolutely true to what the amp sounds like or whether you should sweeten it to sit in the mix. I'm a little bit in between, and been doing a bit of both, much like yourself, and keeping it minimal when I'm making it sit in a track.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Teresa's saying you guys have family in Sydney. Were you aware of that?
We do. I forgot about that. We have an uncle and some cousins.
Cool.
So, we're all over the place.
Yeah. Now, Gabor's saying they've been using the Lewitt 440 as well, together with a 57 at Alex Studio.
Oh.
They actually sound really good together. I'll have to try that. I've been replacing the 57 with the 440. But you never know with these things. As I said, I got a Royer 121 ribbon microphone clone that I got really cheap, and the blend of those two is right up there.
That's kind of like the standard, the 57 and the Royer, so is the perfect mix.
Absolutely. Now, for anybody out there, mate, that is probably new to the whole recording thing, what's some tips that you could give people?
New to the recording thing. It kind of depends what you're going to be recording and what your goal is. If you're a guitar player that just wants to kind of come up with basic tracks, nowadays, I mean, back when we started with digital recording, it was a lot harder.
Yeah.
And more expensive.
Yep.
I remember my first Pro Tools, the 001 rack thing, and
same here.
My Mac would always crash, and it, none of my plugins worked and all that stuff. So it's a lot easier and it's a lot cheaper to get into home recording these days. You can get an interface for like less than $200 and free plugins and free software and everything. So it really depends how deep you want to get into it. If you want to start miking amps and experimenting with different preamps and outboard pre's and compressors and all that stuff. Yep. But for me, for my workflow, it's a lot easier to work within the box. So I have like outboard like preamps and compressors that are in my closet because of the universal audio stuff. Everything is easier in the box with my presets, just bam, bam, bam. But, I've experimented with different interfaces. I just got this IK multimedia interface that was kind of made for guitar players. So that's a cool one to have. And I don't know, it's just like experiment with like the plugins. There's so many guitar plugins nowadays that sound great.
There is, isn't there?
So, yeah.
Cool. Now, RJ, I know you said you only had about an hour or so to kill, mate, so I've gone a little bit over time. If anybody in the chat has any questions before I round things up, speak now or forever hold your peace. What else we got here?
Gabor is running the chat, looks like.
Yeah, he's good for that. I think Gabor's a stay-at-home dad and then works on the weekends as a musician. So whenever I'm doing the chats, he's always in there, which is great. Always nice to have somebody familiar in there.
Yeah. It's funny when I do my Saturday morning live stream, he's usually coming back from his gig.
Yeah, right.
Which is so weird.
Yeah. No,
what time is it there right now?
Right now it is 11:20 a.m.
Okay.
On Friday.
That's crazy.
So I'm ahead of you a day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. We are from the future. Mate, have you got any other events or anything coming up? I mean, you said you just went to NAMM. We did the 42 Gear Street. Anything else on the radar?
Nothing too exciting in the books yet. In the States, there's Summer NAMM here in Nashville that happens in the summer.
Is that still a thing? Is that still going?
Yeah, it's in June.
Yeah.
And it's about a fifth the size of Winter NAMM. It's really small, but it's cool because it's tolerable, it's doable, it doesn't stress you out as much as Winter NAMM. It doesn't take a lot of energy, as much energy.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing that, just kind of hanging out.
I'm actually considering going to a Summer NAMM myself.
Summer NAMM is cheaper than Winter NAMM. And it's just as fun. I think, especially last year, a lot of the guys came into town. So like Trey Xavier from Gear Gods, I think, was in town, which I don't think I've ever seen him at the Summer NAMM before. Ryan 60 Cycle Hum was in town, and so I think it's getting a little bit bigger, and there's more people are going because it is cheaper. It's a little bit more, I wouldn't say more fun, but it's right in the heart of Nashville.
Cool.
Nashville's a guitar town. It's a music town. So it's exciting. You're not staying by a convention center where you only have the convention stuff convention center stuff around you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can actually feel the city, So yeah, I think you should.
That could be on the cards. What do you reckon, Lauren? Should we make a bit of a trip over there? I see that you're in the chat. That would be, yeah. Why not go and see a bit of Nashville? And so one thing I had at NAMM, Winter NAMM, was I have a bit of a voice issue. When I worked for Apple years ago, I had to talk all day as a trainer without a microphone, and it destroyed my voice. So I lose my voice very easily talking over loud ambient noise.
You'll lose your voice the first day then.
Oh, man, I went to Melbourne Guitar Show last year, and first day I just had every intention of doing a bunch of interviews and stuff. Nah, couldn't. But so Summer NAMM, I hope I'm getting the summers and the winters right. Nashville NAMM.
Oh, that's right.
Because it's all backwards to me. I'm going to call it Nashville NAMM. Maybe better being a bit quieter, and I could actually get around and not lose my voice and actually be able to talk to people.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so. RJ, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great having a bit of a chat. I've had quite a few people from 42 Gear Street as guests. Some great guitar players like Sammy and Mika.
Yeah, beasts.
Totally. And yourself now. I have to round up some of the other crew. I had a bit of time off from doing these over Christmas, and then NAMM popped up after that. So everyone that I've spoken to is like, oh, man, just let me get NAMM out of the way.
Yeah, and we all got sick.
And that's a thing. That is a thing. NAMthrax, anybody that's never been.
Everyone got sick this year. It was crazy.
Yeah, you can use as much hand sanitizer as you want to, but everyone's playing the same guitars, shaking hands, and man, that was the last time I got really sick, a flu kind of way, was when I went to NAMM about 2 years ago. Laid me on my ass, that did. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
Yeah. So, actually, I'm just going to check that there's no more questions before we go. Gabor, have you seen the videos Glenn has been putting up? The Brainworks Friedman amp plugins. They sound killer. I was editing videos when I got the notification that you guys are live.
I heard about the new ones. I just bought the Dirty Shirley and BE100 plugins, so I'm not sure if those are it or if there's new ones, but
I think
they're great.
Yeah, from what I saw was the BE100 one. They are great. It's not like having the real thing, though. It's not like having the real thing.
Oh, no.
I saw you posted a video recently asking Dave Friedman's advice as to which Friedman was for you. And as I said, I don't watch your videos, so I don't want to get intimidated. Which one did he end up suggesting for you?
So the new one, which is a dual Dirty Shirley called the Twin Sister, and I'm waiting for that one because I really want that one.
Yeah. I've been really wanting a Friedman amp again since selling my small box. I kind of thought I'd get another small box, but that actually piqued my interest as well.
I got into the small box because I borrowed my friend's, and I was kind of on the fence about it. I'm like, maybe should I get this, or maybe I'll get the BE100 Deluxe. And then I didn't know anything about the Dirty Shirleys, and I got to play through the one at the event, and it sounded just how I wanted the amp to sound.
Cool.
It had characteristics of the small box.
Yeah.
Like when you turn it cleaner, it's got that really nice Plexus sound.
Nice.
So I think it's perfect for me.
Uh-huh. I actually thought that was a Photoshop mock-up when I first saw it, the Twin Sisters. And I thought, hello, someone's been messing around here, but it was a real thing, and that really surprised me. And
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Just having two of the same amp in one, and you can just tweak it how you want it.
Well, that way, when you change a channel, it's not like a completely different sound that's not going to sit in the mix like your other one did, which is always an issue with multi-channel amps. There's always a bit of you get something EQ'd just right on one channel, go to the other. It's just like, oh man, if only this had its own little graphic in there and pull out a bit of this.
Yeah. Same thing with amps that have like a boost or button.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound the same.
Yeah, always changes the characteristics.
Yeah.
RJ, again, thank you very much, mate, for being on. Love to have you back on again if you're up for a bit of a chat sometime.
Absolutely. We should get a bunch of the 42 Gear Street guys and have like a huge chat, 5-person chat or something.
Yeah, why not? Why not? That's actually a great idea, mate. Be hard to try and switch between everybody. That's what I need is a switcher for Ecamm. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
So you can switch between. I'm currently using a mouse and key commands, and I have been known to hit the wrong one and bring up my outro at the wrong time.
Yeah.
mid conversation and stuff. So yeah, a switcher like that would go a long way in being able to facilitate something like that, I think.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in and listening to us just talk crap like we do. Been a pleasure, my friend, and I will see everybody again. Bye now.